Other than economic threats, what are the major threats to the industry right now?
I think one of them is that this tendency that I was talking about earlier to put more and more money towards fewer and fewer authors and projects is quite risky, because it becomes more and more of a lottery in terms of new writers. You're hoping that you will get a Richard and Judy pick or a Booker Prize, because that makes such a difference now compared to everything else. That if we squeeze out the middle completely and squeeze out other channels completely, then I think for individual companies it becomes much more risky, and for writers it becomes more risky too.
In terms of fiction, which genres are causing the most excitement at present, would you say?
I think obviously the Stephanie Meyer phenomenon is the one that everybody's looking at the moment, because this is something which is having a truly international success, and there are a number of Stephanie Meyer clones coming along as we speak. Beyond that, I think the international perspective, something that's not too parochial, something that brings in another country, another culture, that's still of value, and strong stories are still important. But this crossover novel that we've seen over the last few years, that seems to be going on and going well.
Now, what about digital issues? A big question, obviously, but what are the digital issues on the agenda that remain unresolved at this point in time?
Well, I think that we're still waiting for that tipping point where, either through the technology and the wider availability of books on iPhone, where there's a sufficient traction in the market for us to really see which way it's going. And then we will be able to, as agents, decide whether the sort of royalties which are being offered at the moment are appropriate. So what we're trying to do now is to say we will make a deal for a limited period of time, and let's look and see. Because I think we spent a lot of time arguing and discussing about something that was very theoretical up to very recently.
Yes, yes.
So if we get to a point, if Apple come up with something, or people get into the habit through the Sony Reader of really downloading and reading books that way, then I think we'll be able to look again and look at the structure. We don't want to be saddled with an agreement that was made on behalf of authors at a time when nothing really substantial was happening, because that's what happened with the high discount clauses before the netbook agreement was abolished. And now we end up with these lower royalties which authors accepted at a time when it was exceptional. And now it's the norm for best-selling authors to be sold at high discount. And that was never originally envisaged that way. So we're going to keep it under review and wait and hope that we get to that point where we've really got something substantial to talk about.
And we're getting better at reading fiction in translation, and we've just had Stieg Larsson at #1, the first time a novel in translation has actually made it to that position in the charts. But we're still very resistant, aren't we, as Brits? We always think we should just shout louder and everyone should understand us. Why do you think we're so resistant when the Germans, the French, the Spanish, they all read translated fiction, after all? Why not us?
I think the language is the most important issue. The fact that English is so widely spoken means that we have so many kinds of books offered to us in our own language. We're not obliged to look for translations to get certain kinds of books. I think that it was through English that largely that, for example, the Germans started reading thrillers, and now they have their own crime writers and thriller writers where perhaps 20 years ago they didn't. Everything was coming in translation. So for that kind of popular writing, they got very used to reading translations, and you've always got a slight feeling that something is a translation, however good it is, but nevertheless they were familiar with it. And then you've got an intellectual level of people who buy books from different countries to get a sense of what is being done in the literary world in other countries. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we have that to the same extent here. Literary fiction in general is very hard to sell, even in English. In the UK, we're selling much more in the mid-range, and so hard enough to get to sell literature in English And then to add on that the fact that in general people aren't so familiar with reading a translation makes it sort of doubly hard to sell a literature in translation.
And finally, what are you particularly looking forward to at this year's London Book Fair, which of course is only a few weeks away now?
We're definitely looking forward to using the fair as an opportunity to renew all our contacts with the publishers who come from all over the world now to London. That's the most important element for us, because we have ongoing business with them, we have new things we want to talk to them about, we have a general sense of their markets that we want to explore with them, and although you can do a certain amount of that during the year by email, of course, there's nothing that beats the face-to-face contact with our customers, and it's a learning experience for us as well as a selling one.
Paul Marsh, thank you very much.
Thank you.